Welcome to the Miami Sports Vibes podcast with Nando Diaz. I want to ask you, so during that stretch in the 2000s, it was Lakers Kings. That's all you heard. The rivalry was insane. And you got to see much of Kobe. So you saw Kobe at his peak, throughout his whole career. So tell me about Kobe. What were you able to see about, his work ethic, the way he carries himself, and being in the building for his performances, and just him as a person from your experience?
He created more pain for Sacramento Kings fans than any player to ever live. Kobe Bryant beat the Kings more times on buzzer beaters, big time last second shots than any player that has ever faced Sacramento. When you were playing the Lakers, you knew if the game was close and it came down to a final possession, you knew in all likelihood Kobe Bryant was going to have the ball, and in all likelihood he was going to win the game for the Lakers. And it didn't matter if you had two guys on him. It really did not matter. There's no player, including Michael Jordan. And you got to remember, the Kings only played the Bulls twice a year, so that's not a great comparison. But if the game was close, Kings-Lakers was the great rivalry back then. You knew as you were announcing the game that you were in trouble because the other team had a player named Kobe Bryant, and he had a drive and a will and a competitive aspect. There was something, to say that the guy was special doesn't do him justice on the basketball floor. He just was a absolute killer on the basketball court. His competitive drive, his will to win, not only offensively, but defensively as well, was unbelievable. And I feel unbelievably honored and blessed. I put a picture out on social media back in January. Kobe's last game in Sacramento. I was doing my radio show live, and I do my radio show right on the floor. Kobe was always the first one to arrive in the building. And he's walking across the floor to go into the locker room, and he walks right in front of me. And I'm doing my radio show live, and I go, "Kobe." And he stops, and he looks at me, and he extends his hand. And I said live on the radio, "Hey, just want to say thank you, how much I respect you, and what an honor it's been to watch you play." And I'm really happy that I had that moment, because there's only two times in my life that I ever talked to Kobe Bryant. One was in the loading dock area where the buses are at the Staples Center. I was standing next to John Barry, who played with Kobe for a while. And I was talking to JB, who was on the Kings, and Kobe came out, and JB and Kobe were talking, and then Kobe goes, "Hey man, how you doing?" I go, "Good." And I shook his hand and go, but that was the only two times. But I was so happy, Nando, especially in retrospect, that I had a chance to say that. And I'll tell you, I did the same thing to Dwayne Wade. When Dwayne Wade was in Sacramento 2 years ago, was it 2 years ago where he retired? He was making his last appearance. He was warming up, and I went over to him. And I've never talked to Dwayne Wade, never once, never interviewed him, never. And I walked over to him, I go, "Hey, Dwayne." And he stopped dribbling, and I shook his hand, and I said, "Hey, I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you and what a privilege it's been to announce your games over the years." And he could not have been nicer. He said, "Hey, man, I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. It means a lot to me." And I said, "Hey, I wish you the best." Same thing with Dirk Nowitzki when Dirk came in his final year. Like, I think it's important. Like, the games aren't about me, but like, if you don't acknowledge greatness and class, when I think of Dwayne Wade, I think of class, right? When I think of Dirk Nowitzki, I don't just think about a great player. I think about a great person. I think about class, right? When I look at players like Dwayne Wade, and when I look at what they've done for the league, and they've paid it forward, and they've helped mentor the younger players, like, to me, that's as good as it gets, man. Like, that is great. And so, and again, listen, with League Pass, all these players know who I am. It's not like I walk up to them, they don't know who the hell I am. They watch games all the time. They know who I am. But I haven't talked to them because I'm working for the other team. But I'm really happy I did that in my career, Nando. I'm really happy that I let these great players know that it was a privilege to announce games that they played in.
That's an awesome story. Those two guys are part of the generation. They were the hot thing when I started watching. So Dwayne Wade, obviously, he's
Yep.
my favorite player, and the reason why he's my favorite player, and even still, you ask me, even though he's not playing, it's still D Wade. That's my guy, and it's not just because of his performances, just the way he carried himself. And it's cool because towards the end of his career and his last dance, his last year, you got to see how he was appreciated in so many different arenas and cities,
Hmm.
and Kobe as well. The way he went out, his farewell tour, just everybody, even the like you said, the Kings, like he put so many daggers in their hearts, and look at how they send them off with standing ovations. And it's like, man,
Sure.
the generation watching the game now or getting to know the game now will never know how much of a you say a privilege to call the games. It was a privilege for me to watch these guys, Kobe and Dwayne. There's never going to be another person like those two, to play the game at, and it's unbelievable.
Nope.
So thank you for sharing that for real. That was awesome. Shortly after that, 2003, you called the first NBA game for LeBron James of his career. It was in Sacramento against the Kings, his first NBA game. How was that? Could you tell at the moment when you watched the
Yeah.
game, this kid's going to be special and be, where he is today?
Well, first of all, leading up to that game, I got asked to be the voice for his first ever NBA Nike commercial. You can Google it. And I think it's called Nike LeBron James Pressure. And so Jerry Reynolds and I, who do the games for Sacramento, we were the voice, and they actually put us on camera on the first LeBron James Nike commercial leading up to that game. Speaking of Jerry Reynolds, who coached in the NBA, was a general manager in the NBA, during the game, Nando, all right? During the game, first game ever, just out of high school,